sides are equal, 2 of the sides are equal. So if we were to look at this triangle right here, these 2 lines, these 2 tick marks tell us that those 2 sides are equal. So go ahead and draw this picture. Without all those boxes, we'll label it in a bit. So this is an example of an isosceles triangle. All right, so an isosceles triangle has special names to each part of it. So these 2 sides that have a little tick mark, those are going to be called the legs of the triangle. And then that third side that is not equal will be called my base. So when we're talking about an isosceles triangle, we have 2 legs that are congruent. And when we're talking about being congruent, we're saying that they're the same measure, which means that they are equal. And when we have an isosceles triangle, our 3 angles, the one where connects the angle that is created with the 2 legs is called our vertex angle. And the 2 angles using the base are called my base angle. And the cool thing about isosceles triangles, let me give you a second so you can write it down. Did you spell angels? I do that all the time. So if we have our 2 legs that are congruent, our base angles are also going to be congruent. So isosceles triangles have 2 base angles congruent. And congruent means they're the same, which means they are equal measure. Doesn't that green look so pretty on that screen? Super bright. So that's going to bring us to our theorems. Don't write this down yet. We're just going to talk about it really quick. If 2 sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite those sides are also congruent. And if the angles of a triangle is congruent, then the sides of the opposite of those angles are congruent. So we're going to put it in words that are easier to understand. So we're going to say if the sides, let's put 2 sides, if the 2 sides of a triangle are congruent. Isn't this a cool color? And if you don't like the word congruent, if it just confuses you because it's just a new word, you can put equal. If it makes more sense, if your brain accepts it a little bit easier, if the 2 sides of a triangle are congruent or equal, yes, then the base angles are also congruent. And again, if you don't like that word congruent, use equal. So right under it, go ahead and draw 2 triangles with an arrow. So this theorem basically means if there is a triangle where my 2 sides are congruent, then that means that these 2 base angles are also congruent. Okay, we're now going to do the inverse. Do you guys remember what inverse means? Opposite. So now we're going to change it. So instead of the sides being congruent, we're going to start with the angles being congruent. So and let's go ahead and draw those 2 triangles once you're ready. We're going to put if my 2 base angles are congruent, then my 2 legs are congruent. Question? All right, let's go ahead and draw this first example. Actually, we'll just do 2. This one right here. Put your phones away, please. All right, everybody got it drawn? All right, so what do we know about this triangle? When we start solving for measurements of any type of polygon, we want to see what the information we are given first. So what information are we given? That it's an isosceles. How do we know it's an isosceles? Yes, because of these two lines, we can say that our isosceles triangle, that this is an isosceles triangle. So what can we say about this angle measure? These two are congruent. So if this is x and we don't know what this one is, we can also call it x. So right now we know that the angle of the vertex is 30 and our two base angles are x. What else do we know about a triangle? Does anybody remember from middle school what the angle measure of a triangle is? Josh, put your phone away, please. Put it on the side, on the other table. No, well, that one or the table, that's fine. There you go, thank you. So what do we know about the angle measures of a triangle? Does anybody remember? What do those three angles equal? You're close. 180, yeah. So a triangle is going to be equal to 180 degrees. So let's write that down. A triangle is equal to 180 degrees. Yes. So maybe we should highlight it a little bit more. And there's an activity to discover it, but we're going to do that when we are talking about all types of polygons. All right, so we have our triangle, it's equal to 180 degrees. So three angles are equal to 180. So we've got 30. So we're going to add 30 degrees. Then we're going to add it to the next angle. And what's the other angle? X. And then my last angle, it's also x. So when we add 30 plus x, that's going to give us 180 degrees. So now let's solve for x. We first combine like terms. Then we subtract 30 and we divide by 2. So our x is equal to 75 degrees. That means this is 75 and this is 75. Any questions on this one? Those colors are so pretty, I can't get over it. It looks prettier than my screen. All right, ready? Here's my next problem. Go ahead and write this one down. Now, before I ask you what information do we know about this problem, I want to remind you that we can never assume anything in geometry. It has to either be yes or it has to be no, but we need proof that it is what we say it is. So if we look at this triangle, what do we know about this triangle by just looking at it? Do we know anything? Why would you say that? How do we know they're congruent? How do we know it's isosceles though? We can't assume it, right? It looks like an isosceles, but one of the angles could be it could be like 0.5 smaller. So we can't assume anything based off of that picture, but we could prove something. What angle measure can we find out based off of those two angles that we know? The other base. How can we find that other base out? What can we use? We can use the other basis given, but what do we know? Right, a triangle is equal to 180 degrees. So I'm going to call this, we can call it angle W. I don't know. Or what's another way we can come up with that angle? This angle right here. Mm-hmm. Because we know a triangle is 180 degrees. What did you say? We could. If I were, go ahead. Okay, so let's add the two angles together. Good. Oh, it is. Yes. Great job, Eva. So then she says that we have 56 and 62. So we're adding them together and we get 118. Because those two angle measures are 118. Really? You are a genius. So we have 118 degrees. So what can we do with that information and the 180 that we have? Subtra Subtract them. Great job, Regina and Eva. So 180 minus 118, because this is the, ah, all right. So this angle is 62 degrees. Now that we have that information, what kind of triangle is this? Now we can say it's an isosceles triangle because we know that these two base angles are congruent. And because those two base angles are congruent, what do we know about the two legs? They're also congruent. So x is equal to 42. It's like a puzzle, huh? I love it. That's it. We're done. What part? Got it? It's all right. This is the first time you guys see this. If you guys need time, let me know. Okay, we have time for one more example. I know, because math is so awesome. All right, we're going to do this last one, and then you can use the rest of the time to finish your assignment if you didn't finish it. Go ahead and draw this one. And here we have two measures that we don't know. All right, so what information do we know about this problem? It is isosceles. How do we know it's isosceles? Right, those two tick marks are telling us they're isosceles. Yes, so because these are isosceles, then these angles are congruent. So you guys are correct. Myla and Samaya, x is equal to 82. Now what can we do to find our y? Yeah, so what are we going to add? Yeah, so we're going to do 82 plus 82, my two base angles. That gives us 164. And then, right, subtract from 180 because 180 is what a triangle is equal to. So what does that leave for my y? 16. Awesome job. All right, so that is all for today. If you're done with the assignment, I'm going to put a puzzle that you might enjoy that's going to help you see the triangle sum theorem, which is just basically proving that a triangle is 180 degrees. It's a lot of fun, so you can do it. We have 12 minutes, so if you're done with your assignment from Wednesday, that's something that you can work on. I will not be grading it, but it's really fun to watch, or not to watch, but to do, because it's a puzzle. So I'll post it in a bit.